All right. Well, welcome to the July 21st special edition or special meeting to talk about the Gateway Area Project. We'll start with a roll call. I'm Serge Mahalo. I'm here. And Humnath.
Hi, I'm here.
Present. Lovely. Travis Kuna, who I guess is hopefully going to join later, but is not present. Is that true? And then Walt Geist.
Present.
Amanda Hickey. I guess we'll wait for her as well. Linda Zespu.
Here.
And Monique Molina.
Here.
And Amanda joined us too. So
And Amanda, can you say here if you're here?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. We can hear you. All right, perfect. So we'll move into item number 2, the business and action items. Item number 1 on this is to do the recommendations on the Gateway Area Plan, which sounds easy when we say it like that.
until I give you a big long form to complete and a whole lot of information. So I got I got 2 of the review tables back from committee members ahead of time. So one of them was majority, a lot of really just individual questions and like wanting to get more clarification. It seemed like less policy direction. And the other had 3 different policies that they had some proposals on. So what I think I'm going to suggest, since the majority of you guys didn't get that back to me ahead of time, is that we take a minute. If you've looked at this, hopefully you've had a chance to look it through. If every member could pick their top 2 or 3 policies that they would really like to dig into. 2 would be better. And if there's not one, if you don't have one and you just kind of want to go over what everybody else has been reviewing or you haven't had a chance to do it yet, that's fine too. But if we could do it that way, I kind of think that then we can narrow it down and start to go through some of these individually. And if I had gotten a lot of responses back, what I had anticipated doing is just narrowing it down that way so that I could put those into the proposed modification and we could kind of go through them one by one. But since we didn't get that ahead of time, I think this might be a way to still make this a useful meeting and hopefully be able to come up with a recommendation. Does that sound okay to the group? Does that sound okay to everybody?
Mm-hmm. And I just want to be real clear, Jen, just so we're all on the really same page and we can be streamlined and focused. The point of this meeting is so that we make a recommendation on the Gateway Area Plan. Essentially, what we would do is either say that we recommend the plan in its current form on these items, or B, we recommend that we put these changes in, which is the form that you're talking about.
Yep.
And I think the whole point of this meeting is to, at the end, fill out that form as a group and submit that
and make your recommendation. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear about that. And Jen, do you want to? I guess everybody's got a chance to see the form that we're talking about, because I was it is good, but I was confused at first too. I read so much stuff, but that's the ultimate goal, is to put our recommendations on that form. And
I can share it. It's
14 pages long.
Yeah, it's long. It's long.
It is. Even if you shared your screen so we can all kind of see what it looks like.
Yeah, I can share your screen just to orient you to the right form. Okay. So this is the form that I'm talking about that I sent over. And it kind of had some of our general comments up here. And then it had, where you can find each of the policies and page numbers there. And then this is where you would fill out your proposed modifications. So the idea is, if you have hopefully had a chance to look through this, if you could each come up with, and think this through a little bit, come up with your top 2. And focusing, of course, on economic development, since that's what our committee is about, because this is going to each of the committees. So I really reiterated that, I think, in the email, just making sure that, that we understand that we want to stay on topic, focusing on economic development, because that's our committee. pick your top 2 or 3. And then if you want to give those to me, if you have them, you can just raise your hand and then maybe just give those to me. And then I'll highlight them here and we can go through them in order. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Yeah. Should we go first with the one that we had the 3 in writing, since that's well organized? If we were going to start to talk or to inject, which would be the 2?
Yep. So that was Amanda, I think that was yours.
While I'm mute. Yeah, I sent I think sounds like the simpler version. I don't mind, Jen, if you want to share off that, if it's easier to see in writing. I think I had two major points that I wanted to make. Just to kind of get a little more specific. Of course, this is a broad vision and we use a lot of words like encourage. And I think that from my perspective, given how important the development of like workforce housing and just affordable housing in general with pathways to building equity is, I would like to see stronger language that's not just encouraging, but privileging, and just giving more weight, possibly literally in a rubric, if that's created for this community benefit and development standard. And then the other place that I weighed in where we've, been receiving comments from the public and I've had some discussions around is just that some of the language around the mixed use vision for the plan is focused a lot on retail and service like dining and things like that. And, those aren't really the kind of necessarily the sort of job creation that needs encouragement. We have a lot of retail space that's empty in our city, and maybe some building in of different kinds of job opportunities, whether it's accommodating digital careers with co-work space or higher quality office space to encourage the way that those kind of occupations, the infrastructure that they need, or light industrial maker spaces, incubators, something like that. And that's what I think we've heard from folks calling in a bit. So I just found a couple places where that might be incorporated in. I think also under community benefit, right? Yep.
Community benefit, and this one under housing, under affordable housing, owner-occupied affordable housing.
And then I just proposed a couple ideas that could make that owner-occupied affordable housing concept a little bit stronger and a little bit more concrete. First of all, once again, assigning weights on a community benefits rubric, defining what kind of maybe tech assistance or further like pre-definition of pathways, including, innovative financing mechanisms and the partnerships that would be needed to just help that, help anyone who might be inclined to put something like that forward, get the things in place that they would need. Because I think what we've seen in communities across this country is that, without support beyond encouragement, these models tend to lose out to other things that are easier to finance and have higher profit margins. So yeah, those are mine.
So those are her 3. So we can start there. And then why don't we go through, if each of you can give me yours, I'll go ahead and highlight them on this form that Amanda sent in, since we've got hers on here, and then we can go through them in order. Does that work? Does anybody, you want to raise your hand and let me know when you've got yours? Walt, looks like you've got yours.
I'm more big picture. The thing that I noticed is that there's a whole lot of emphasis on de-emphasizing parking, and it's throughout this. And you're looking at 5,000 new people coming in from out of the area. They aren't going to fly here on their own. They're going to drive, and they're going to have cars, whether you like it or you don't. And they're going to park in every available parking space from here to Eureka. And so I'm not sure where exactly that falls into this. I mean, in like specifics, because it's literally, I did a search, parking is mentioned like 63 times. And it's listed as a challenge. But it's a really major issue, and just pretending that they're not going to have cars. It rains in Humboldt County a lot.
So do you think Do you think that maybe you would we would put that up here just with one of like kind of an overall, because I think some of these were some of the overall kind of.
Well, I'm not sure because I don't know whether to go through each one of these things. It's my intention here is to be constructive. I don't want to throw darts. It's something that the entire plan has like built the idea. There's road layouts and all of these like 10-foot sidewalks that. I don't know how crowded we're gonna have Arts Alive every day or something, but
David. David Loy is on the call, so he can answer that. Obviously, I'm not a transportation. That's just not my thing. But David, he raised his hand. So you want to pipe in here?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. And I apologize in advance if there's a little bit of background noise here. Two things. One real quick on certainly when it comes to visitor serving and uses that are going to draw people from out of the area. You're going to need parking for those uses. And then in addition, one of the concepts that's come up through this process is to have, parking structures at certain nodes so that the district overall could be more car free. So I just wanted to throw that out there just to let you know, it's not like there's no parking in this entire district, but the emphasis is on alternative modes. We have 50 years of emphasis on standard modes. And so trying to do a little course correction there. But then the other thing was more of a process item. What might be best is if you all get your main idea, like the thing that you want to talk about, just get that on the table, and then we can go through and get into the detail of them after everybody's is on the table, and we can kind of weigh in on which ones we want to take on first. Just a thought for process. Obviously, it's totally up to the committee how you want to handle that.
Yeah, we can just table it.
Okay.
So here, I'll go, at least for now, I'll go ahead and just put parking. So if I can, I guess I need to enable editing.
I think it's a massive issue in this. And it's not people who are coming from out of the area. It's students driving across town, people going to work, people working in these, you're going to encourage these businesses. They're going to need employees. Employees need to show up on time. Riding their bike and being soaking wet is not really going to cut it. People are going to drive. And so we either need a very, very well thought out, and there are very vague discussions of mobility and the possibility of this and the possibility of that. But in between here and the possibility, or the possibility and the reality, is a whole lot of people driving cars. And it is going to be massively impactful on all the surrounding neighborhoods, to the point where it will change the character of them, I would think, rather dramatically. Go to a Crabs game. People park at every available spot. So
nobody parks at the police station. You can always park here, FYI. Amanda, I park here every single time, and I get front row basically.
Yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to go head to head, but maybe this will be like a way for us to, on a process level, figure out how to get diverging viewpoints and reconcile them into our recommendations. I think that first of all, parking mandates on building drives up costs, which once again is an anathema to providing affordable housing. So that's kind of a counter view. And then the second one would be that there are between 3 and 8 parking spots for every car in America. That's what those 50 years of primary modalities have gotten us. And this is how we start to move away from that. So maybe finding some way that we can incorporate both viewpoints when we decide to pin down what our formal recommendations are going to be. But in the meantime, I'll just end there so we can figure out what our process should be.
So there's another way that we could do this, and I think this is kind of why I was suggesting that we each go through and give our top 2 or 3, and maybe it's not a policy or a specific policy, maybe it is an overall concern. We could also go ahead and get that all out there and then go through as a group and do a straw poll where everybody says, okay, parking concerns have come up. How many of us would like to recommend that there be additional parking in some manner in the gateway plan or update and then everybody can raise their hand and we can get that information. We can say, okay, there's 2 people who want to and the rest of you don't, or there's all of you want to, or whatever the number is, and then we can move that forward. But instead of doing it one by one, it might be better if we go through each person's kind of suggestions and then go back and do the straw poll and say, do we want to address this as a group? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm moving on. Second one is economic assistance. What I don't see in here, and maybe I missed it, but is active engagement of assistance to businesses to encourage business development. Build it and they will come doesn't work. So it just like getting, economic development, some sort of infrastructure. I mean, something that says businesses call here. These are your resources, things that facilitate and grease the skids to encourage business development, because Arcata has a reputation of being fairly business unfriendly at times. I've heard that more than once. So I think something that lowers that barrier, something that says, hey, we actually do want your business, will help.
So we are going to be working on the economic development strategic plan. So that I think maybe would fall more under that particular plan. I'll put it on here, but I'm just throwing that out there too, just so everybody is aware, like that we're applying for a grant to update that plan and really dig into that plan more. And I think there was a couple of other questions that had come up from one of the other members that I also think might have fallen more squarely into that. But I will add that. So how would you want me to phrase that, Walt?
Well, it's actually up above. It says, what does assistance mean? I would say a well-defined, in red, the second red comment or third red comment. I would say define what assistance. I mean, really, it's the same thing.
Okay.
And then not just impacted, but to draw businesses in and to create,
Because I think this came up during a conversation more about relocation.
It did, and that's exactly, and it was more fleshed out from that. It started out as relocation because it's the existing businesses, and then in listening to some of the comments, Amanda made a comment about getting in, more actual, non-retail. The way you get non-retail businesses in is to encourage them to come in. That it's not, they don't just decide to relocate in Arcata because it's, fun. You got all this parking issues and all these things. I mean, those are impediments. Those are the things that make businesses decide between areas to locate. And if you don't make it easier for them, you're making it harder for them, and someone else will make it easier.
Okay. And do you have specific policies that might that you could envision that would maybe assist with that?
I can make some inquiries. I mean,
I'm just curious because it'd be
I think
that.
It comes
those
from
kind
attitude. It, as much as anything else, it comes from sending out a signal that says, we are actively attracting businesses to this community. Because I don't have a, I'm not a policy wonk, so not my end of the world. I just do a lot of business with a lot of different businesses, and I know how they think.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious if you had something in mind. David, you had your hand raised. Go ahead. Maybe you had.
Yeah. Again, it'd be great to get everything out on the table real quick. And then what I'm thinking is that, we can take, as you get through the discussions and you find the items that you all want to discuss, or majority of you want to discuss, and then you vote on those things and say, okay, well, here's the general topic. We don't have to have specific language right now. In fact, I would discourage us from spending this time crafting language and trying to, refine policy that's already there or create new policy. Because what we can do is, once we have a general direction from the committee, if it's the body of policy that will be integrating into the document right away, we can work on that language. If it's a body of policy that's going to go into the table that the council will later select, conflicting policies from, then once the council says, okay, well, we want to have a policy about this, then we'd spend the time to craft that policy. So I guess my recommendation is that, if you get the ideas on the table, you have a robust discussion about that. You talk about where there's missing policy in the document now, or where the policy in the document now can be improved, and then hand that over to staff, and we'll craft the policy language that reflects your discussion.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I think I understand. What David's saying is that maybe we're going too far in depth with the language and stuff like that. Maybe it would be better if we use this time to kind of get our general 2 or 3 big topics that we really want to talk about and see crafted more. Just get those out on the table, I think, is maybe more the point. Linda, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah. I hope I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm just terrible with technical stuff. Anyway, yeah, I kind of wanted to second what some of the things Walt was talking about, and also Amanda. I know that Serge, you were just mentioning language, and so was David. I guess a lot of my questions when I turned in that stuff were related to clarification of the language. And I don't know, I felt like it was that we're all like on the same page about what the language is, what that means when, like Amanda was mentioning, encouraging businesses. What does that actually mean? And so I'm kind of a little bit in the mode of wanting to clarify some language to be able to make some of those recommendations, but I understand we only have a short amount of time. But related to my seconding, the parking concerns overall, I know that Jane in some of her public comments mentioned that as well. Mine, if we could add it to the same thing, would be under that mobility section of the plan, and would be related to bus and transit issues. I've used Arcata, Med River Transit, and it's just so hit and miss. And but in terms of that mobility and parking and being able to get to and fro to work, or for patrons to get in to partake in, the arts and the entertainment and all of that, there are a lot. And to bring up also with the parking concerns and the bus is that there are disabled members of the business owners and members of the community that will not be able to bike or walk necessarily, will either need cars or need to take the bus. So that was one of my concerns. And then what Amanda was mentioning in terms of the retail stuff, that I completely agree. We have lots of retail and lots of restaurants. And my little 2 cents was to try to find out what can be done, like Walt was talking about, to encourage R&D, or what mechanisms can be put in place to, unless there are, and maybe David could speak to that. I don't know if there are things in place that are set up to do that, to encourage R&D.
And R&D is research and development. That's what she's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems like that just seems such a natural for this area. Nobody has to be tied to an urban center or facility to do R&D, and it's beautiful here. Why wouldn't anybody want to live here?
And I think, again, that one I would point back to the potentially highlighting something like that in the economic development strategic plan for the overall, instead of just for the gateway, but it is mentioned in that one policy I think that you had identified. And so, yeah, it's definitely a good question, but I think for this plan, but do you want me to put that up here on the list? I did put ADA accessibility.
Yeah, I guess I was just seeing the bus and transit issues, ADA accessibility and parking concerns kind of all under that mobility section. If we were trying to put things under just one focus on one particular section of the plan.
Okay, and let's see. So mobility, and then Hamnath, you had your hand raised.
Well, Linda and Walter, they already raised a couple of important issues. One of the things, when I'm going through this plan is I don't see like a lot of incentive for, participants. So this is all voluntary, the city cannot force anyone to build something or do something. Well, if I'm a resident and in that area, what is my incentive? How the city encourages? What are the benefits for the business? So what as a city we are doing to encourage the participants to come up with a better outcome? Otherwise, it's just a plan, doesn't have any incentive, doesn't promote business opportunities. Are we giving any tax incentive? Are we giving any other incentive? What is the plan with the city to encourage people being the part of the plan? If I don't want to be a part of the plan because there is no incentive, I can just stay away from it. So I think we need to be clear on that. I think that's a very important question. We need to ask ourselves when we are coming up with this, planning.
You're on mute.
Yep, sorry. I know I was trying to get myself off mute. So what incentives?
Yeah, incentive, how to encourage the participants to be part of this plan.
Are you talking businesses specifically?
Yeah, businesses and any participant, like, if business, then what is the incentive for them, right? What are we doing as a city? Are we giving any tax break? Are we doing any acceleration in the, the process? I see, even getting house permit takes 1 year here in Arcata. So what are specific about this plan? How can this plan help the participants to be the part of this plan? So basically, I want to be clear about the incentive for the participants on this gateway plan.
Okay, so I think the majority of that, and David can pipe in here if he would like to, but I think the majority of this, the plan obviously is housing, is to allow for housing in this area, and so that's why the focus is on housing.
Okay. So if it's so we do allow for housing, we want to encourage, but then what is the incentive for me? Let's say I have a piece of land over there. I want to develop my housing unit. So what is the incentive for me? Because it's within a plan. How we can encourage the participants? Well, I just want to leave my piece of land without doing anything. What can city do to encourage me to be part of that plan? So that's main concern for me. Otherwise, we're just making a plan. So this is a part of the plan, and if the city is not going to go and build any construction.
Right. Exactly. I think David's on. He's
okay.
Going to answer, or at least discuss it.
Yeah. Just thanks, Jen. Just real briefly, Hamnath. The plan is really designed around a couple of key incentive programs that are built into it. The first is related to streamlining for development. And so that is a huge incentive. I think you talking about, and I think Walt was talking about this earlier too, about, we need to develop programs like, tax incentives for businesses to move here and that sort of thing. And, historically, the city has not done that. Historically, the city has not looked towards, relocating a business. In fact, we have many of our programs that require that we don't pirate jobs, that we don't take jobs away from another jurisdiction. And we've been really focused on, sort of doing the homegrown, local business support. But I totally agree with both you and Walton that, as our community grows, as, we take advantage of things like, the the cable landing that's come to our community as we take advantage of the major industries that are, coming forward. Potentially the aquaculture, the wind farm, all of these things that are happening right now, the expansion of Cal Poly, all of those things are going to converge and really create a new dynamic. And I do think that, we can leverage our existing incentives that we have, incentive programs, and really look to develop new ones. So I guess what I would say in answer to all of that, I think we can put some language together that sort of points towards this, consider developing incentive programs, or maybe as an implementation measure through the document to evaluate different incentive programs, because there's a lot of things that we would have to weigh in balance for that kind of incentive program. And then the other thing that the document really does in terms of incentivizing the reuse of land, or development of land or redevelopment of land for these new businesses, or for individuals that are living in the district already or working in the district already, is that it provides a lot of flexibility. And this goes back to a discussion that was earlier about, well, I don't see a lot in this document that talks about other industries. We can definitely clarify that language, because we really are looking for market-driven development to happen here. So instead of specifying, I think we highlighted, these retail uses or restaurant uses, because we were emphasizing the Gateway as a place to be. The Gateway has at the very center of it the Creamery District, and at the center of that Creamery District is the Creamery Building, which has a thriving arts and culture, thing going on already. So putting a magnifying glass on all of that and creating a framework that allows those businesses to have maximal flexibility in an area where, they would be, close to, vibrant other uses. A lot of the times, if you're research and development, you're out in some business park, 30 miles away from anything in other areas of the state. We'd love to see, as was mentioned earlier, research and development, business right inside of a mixed use, right next to the, the restaurant and the little coffee shop in the corner, and et cetera. So that's where the incentives come in. And then I do want to second what Jen was saying. I think that, identifying citywide incentives in the economic development strategic plan would be a great place to go with this as well. So a little bit of all. I think a little bit of all. We can include new language in this document, include some language in the economic development strategic plan, and then double down on the incentive programs that we already have.
Well, that's thank you for the explanation. Really like the way you explain. But it's still, we need to be cautious about the plan because we are counting. I don't want to be coming with the negative thoughts, but I read the strategic plan, and then in the strategic plan, the old one, the existing one we had still. So we had a plan to. The plan states that. Stated that Humboldt that time HSU would have about 12,000 students. That never happened. So now we are expecting we're going to have influx of 5,000 people with being Cal Poly. How we can assure the resident in that area that is still there is going to be a demand for whatever demand we are projecting right now. So that's some kind of assurance. If that doesn't happen, how the city is going to address those concerns. Let's say I would like to develop my space for business objective, but down the road doesn't happen. So what plan we have to address those concerns? Right now we are projecting that we're going to have big influx of people. If that doesn't work out, so what is our second plan?
Yeah, I'm sorry that calling in, so I couldn't tell if that was rhetorical or directed. So I'll just check in. I have a brief answer for that.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Respond? Okay, great.
Yeah. He nodded, but you can't see that. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And certainly, we make plans based on, in part based on, the information that we have available to us. And in part, with this sort of planning process, there's actually quite a bit of aspirational goal setting going on as well. And so, the intent of the plan at this time is not to sort of game theory out every possibility. It's more just to set those aspirations now and then reevaluate over time if we need to readjust or make, changes to either our aspirations or changes to the plan so that we can hit our aspirations. I think is sort of what the goal of this plan is. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't think, coming up with scenario planning in this document is the most effective way to address your concern. I think the best way to address your concern is to, monitor the effectiveness of this document over time and make modifications as needed.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more points, Himna, that you think are important?
Well, definitely other members like Linda, David, Walter, Amanda, they already raised those concern. I really like that R&D, and continuous, doing research about, development, the parking issues, and these are the issues definitely should be addressed. Yeah, definitely. I really think, the incentive plan is very important for me to achieve the goal, to encourage the people. That's the reason I raised that. Other than that, I think I don't have any other concern right now.
Okay. Amanda, I see you have your hand up. Yeah.
Actually, I think Walt was first. Walt, you want to jump in?
So,
Sure. I'm never shy. So a couple things. I do want to be clear about one thing that I think is a very important distinction. And I think probably, to David's credit, this, I watched the presentation that was given about, what this spawns from, right? Which is basically the state saying you need to loosen your development standards so that people actually build stuff. Perfect. So this is really designed to create an access route for developers to build and to create a zone that allows them a lower barrier to building. Amanda mentioned, that the on-site parking drives up costs. I get it. The whole idea is to lower the cost per square foot so that developers make more money, or whomever owns the property can make more money, or live better if you own it. So I think that structural difference between a physical building and the activities that take place in it is a little bit of the I won't say bifurcation, it's not the right word, but the divergence, I think, in intent. And I think there's a lot of talk about trying to direct the land use about, trying to encourage, what do you want to see with all these buildings? But a lot of it has to do, at least from my read of it, the very vague and ambiguous concept of people living in places, which is great, and business activities, retail kind of things. But it's not, it's overly broad when it comes to purpose. And I think that's why we've got a lot of comments about people owning their business, because that's the human element, is ownership. You're owning the people who want to, buy their space. What kinds of businesses, what kinds of folks are these students? And a lot of that comes from the economic side of it and the incentives, which is what Amnaf was saying about, what are you going to do to encourage, people to do this? And what I was saying about lowering the barrier to entry, I did a search on the document. The word technology is not in it at all. Not once, not even one time. The internet is mentioned once. So what are all these people going to do? I mean, that I mean, this is 2022. The word the internet is mentioned once and technology isn't mentioned at all. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, and it speaks to the intent of the document being basically about bricks and mortar versus the actual physical activity that these people are going to engage in once they get here. And that's the economic development side of it. And I it was mentioned that we have the economic plan, but I really don't think you can separate the two, to the extent that if you don't market this to people, if you don't direct how this is sold to the public and sold to developers, you're going to get whoever shows up. And we don't want whoever shows up. I think one of Amanda's comments, and I am reading between the lines here, but it's one of the reasons I live here, is that this is a walkable community. It matters. It matters a lot. And we don't want to change the character of it. I'm not thinking, we should have an expressway down, G Street. That is not what I want. But I do want a general acknowledgement of the fact that from A to B, people are going to be bringing their cars. And we need to have some rational approach to who these human beings are when they get here and what they're actually going to do once they get here. So that's my overarching, that's the thing that's not settling with me in this. And I'm hoping my grain of sand turns into a pearl. We'll see.
Awesome. Thank you. Amanda?
Yeah, no, all these points are so well made. And I just wanted to say that I didn't mean to underemphasize the role that retail and dining play in placemaking. That is, of course, important. But I do think that the public's, comments about, just creating more opportunities of it are salient too. I've had my nose in workforce data all week, so I apologize that that's about to spill over onto everyone else. But fortunately, one of the analyses I had to use at work was about the workforce staffing needs for offshore wind, aquaculture, and broadband, and the possibilities that come in the wake of broadband. And the deficits that we're running are really huge. We're going to need, 2,000 construction workers, a ton of electricians. Those are the things that are demanded by the occupations that are demanded by those industries that are coming here, that have been greenlit and approved to come. And so I just offer that because I think it kind of creates maybe a clear vision of, who are we building housing for and who are we going to need to drive our economic development. Without a workforce, of course, we can't staff those industries, and there'll be more opportunities like that coming to the region. So I just offer that in case it's helpful. And yeah, for parking, I don't want to discount it either. I would just want, when we're talking about commuters coming in or people coming to visit, a paid parking. People hate paid parking, but I think, the demand for anything that's offered free is infinite. And we have to come up with strategies to incentivize walking and other in transit. So yeah, I'll stop myself there.
Should I put something in regards to paid parking next to the parking concerns, potentially?
I think, yeah.
Well, will that allow? Was that a good compromise?
No, I think it's very rational. I mean, I agree with you completely. I've been talking about permit parking in Arcata forever. People should be zoned. I grew up in Berkeley. We have permit zones parking. It makes sure people who live there have a place to park. So, and your comment about thousands of workers, they're not going to live in Samoa. I mean, they're not at all, period. They're going to live in Eureka and Arcata because we're the closest points. And they are going to have good paying jobs. So you talk about your students needing housing. Brother works out there as an electrician making $120,000 a year. He's going to buy out your student housing real quick.
Linda, you have your hand raised too.
Well, I just to respond to a lot of the comments, kind of going back to what Walt was mentioning with the, one of the reasons we live here is, the walkability and that sort of thing. Although, I'd go back to the fact that there are those with different kinds of disabilities, whether someone is blind or disabled and needs, uses wheelchair or has other any other disability that prevents them from being able to drive or to walk across town. So if we want people coming to events, we need to address that. But the livability part, and I guess this was just one of the things that stood out to me, was the incentivizing for developers to build up to 8+ story buildings. And my concern, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a physical space or visual person, but is the effect of kind of jamming all that into one area and having I just, what comes to mind is down 2 blocks off the Sorrel Place building there. Just feels physically imposing. It blocks out the light. And to think that there would be several buildings like that all in the same area, I think would make it a little less desirable for somebody or a business that is in a building that's basically being blocked by some 8-story building. That's I think it's more of an aesthetic thing for me, but it also just physically feels like that could be, I don't know if disincentivizing is really the word, but it just might make it unpleasant. I don't know how else to put it.
So do you want to, I think that's been brought up a lot. I think the council is very, very aware of the concern about 8-story buildings or tall stature buildings in general. And so I'm pretty pretty positive that they're all very clear. But if you guys want to send another 8, we don't like 8 stories, I'm happy to put that in here. I do want to make sure that you understand, though, that is only being proposed in the Barrel District, which right now really doesn't have any other, there's nothing it's going to block, is what I'm trying to say. It's just that one district. And so just to be really clear, because I know that some people hear that and they think, oh my God, the whole Gateway area is going to be 8-story buildings. And that's just in the Barrel District. So it is in that one district. So if you look at that, there's a map in the Gateway plan that gives the different districts. And then on the next page over, it gives kind of a table. And so close to the residential, it gets lower. So it's like that Gateway Barrel District, and then kind of the middle section is sort of I don't know if it's called a hub. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but that area is where the larger stature buildings are being proposed. And then it kind of, towards the neighborhoods gets smaller with that understanding. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Okay.
But yeah, if you guys want me to put something in here in regards to that, or do you? I feel like my whole plan is completely lost. I don't even know where we're at. I'm just going to put more stuff on this paper and you guys can tell me what you want to do. I don't think any of the policies, I don't know what to do here, guys. I'm at a loss.
I think we're doing good, Jen. I think, yeah, it's overwhelming to try to think that we're going to read all these policies and then propose a modification. I think what I heard from David especially is that making a list like this for the areas that we want to continue to focus on might be a more reasonable solution to what we're trying to do today.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's really a good point, Chair. The discussion tonight, if you get to a point and you say, hey, look, these are our topics, these are the important things, we're going to take a vote on this and it passes, then what we will do is we'll either, again, we'll craft the language, we'll forward the recommendation onto the City Council, or else we'll come back and point out to you where we think that we can, we've either addressed your concerns already or else have enhanced the language to address those concerns. Because a lot of what I'm hearing tonight, with few exceptions, a lot of what I'm hearing tonight really resonates with the plan as it's proposed. And, I think what you're highlighting for us is some clarifications we can make to ensure that it's crystal clear.
Okay. Perfect. Monique, do you have any key points that you'd like to chime in about and put on?
Sure. Thank you, Serge, for including me. I am looking at the plan, and I think I would just need a little bit more time and I think more collaboration with my colleagues, which is what we're doing, and it's great to kind of dig in more. But what I've noticed, I was just looking at Site A and Site K as being the largest sites, and it being termed as campus. And I guess I wanted maybe just like a little more clarification as to whether that would mostly entail, certain types of housing, I guess, to students or to families. And if so, if it's student housing, I was just kind of like looking at the map as well as like the distance from HS or to Cal Poly to Site A and Site K, which isn't too big, but I was reading that it's mostly like those sites are also going to be bikes and walking. And so I was kind of thinking about transportation and attracting the, if it is for students, then just that, biking is fine. But I don't know why transportation popped up. So just kind of putting that out there. And I think that's pretty much it.
So this, just to make sure, Monique, you're talking about this site here, K and I right here. No, I think the term campus is more that, and again, David can clarify this a little bit more, but I think the term campus is that this would be like one sort of planned area, and it would be a larger area. And this is also the Barrel District. So David, I don't know if you have more clarification, but it does not mean student housing. It's not specific for student housing. That's not what it means.
Can I jump in? And it also said it's within the coastal zone. What's the relevance of that compared to the other areas? What would that make different?
David, I'm going to let you answer this one.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't quite catch that last part. Can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, I noticed that Site K, it was mentioned that it's within the coastal zone. And I wanted to know what would make that different or how that would impact the vision that the Gateway Area Plan has for Site K.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I think I understand. Going back, I think you're absolutely right. The confusion around the term campus, I think we can change that name because we don't want anybody to think that what we're proposing is student housing. So we'll find a new term for that. But the goal of the plan is really to diversify housing. I know you're not seeing this detail in this document. If you go into the amenities section, I believe it's Chapter 2 or Section 2 of Chapter 1, something like that, talks about the amenities. And in the housing section, housing creation section, it talks about, emphasizing a range of different housing types, a range of different tenures, and a range of different income levels. And so the current system that we have really does incentivize student housing and housing affordable to people earning 80% or less area median income. And that's right now in the market conditions, that's almost all that's getting built. We have a couple ADUs, all that's getting developed. So this plan really tries to resolve that by not only creating a framework that allows more flexibility, but also by creating incentives through streamlining to get a diversity of housing types. To your question about the portion that's in the coastal zone, the intent here is that once we get done with this local planning, the planning that has to do with our general plan that isn't subject to state oversight, local coastal commission state oversight, we would then take that exact same, policy and code that we had developed for the portion that's in the coastal zone and apply for an amendment to our local coastal program, thereby basically implementing the exact same framework in the coastal zone. So there wouldn't be any additional implications from being in the coastal zone at that point for Site K.
Okay.
Do you think that's possible? I mean, you just talked about rezoning like all of Arcata outside of, that seems like a big grab. Just saying.
Okay, thanks for that.
No, I mean, I guess my question is how has that? I mean, my experience with that is it's not easy to do. So.
Okay, well, we're doing a lot of stuff that's not easy to do, Walt, and
Okay.
we're fighting the good fight, and we're carrying the water.
I just want to make sure you don't run into a wall.
The Coastal Commission, the conversations that we've had thus far, obviously we don't have a permit before them, so they're not going to give us anything with certainty, but, they seem warm to the idea. This strategy is in part associated with our long-range planning for adaptation planning. In fact, over time as sea level rises, there's, hundreds of homes, tens of businesses in the area south of Samoa that are, at risk if we don't do something as a planet to reverse our climate impact. Those businesses are going to be faced with, we really don't clean up our act, then they're ultimately going to be basically repossessed by the bay. So we need to have a place to relocate those folks, over the next 50 to 100 years. The plan is that we can transition land uses, and some of those land uses would transition into the gateway area. And so yeah, I think that, as part of our strategy for, adaptation and relocation, it's of interest to the Coastal Commission to, continue to support this project. And, it's a process. It's a public process. There's a lot of bits and pieces to work out, but we're going to continue to work on it. We got a great team doing it too. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, David. Okay, I see some more hands raised here. Linda, I see that you've got your hand raised again.
Yeah, I was just, as the discussion was going along there, and Jen was showing the map of all the districts and talking about the Barrel District specifically. One of the notes I had in my stuff when I've been going through it was the creation of a second plaza. Just my personal take on it, but in terms of what I love about living in Arcata is I love that there is basically from almost any point in town, whether you can walk or bike or drive or take the bus, but there is a city center and we all go there. And that is where we as a community meet and commune, whether it's farmers market or it's a North Country Fair or whatever. And I don't know. My sense would be that having a second plaza would be kind of dilute that sense of community that revolves right around downtown in the plaza.
And I think maybe the word plaza is making that a little less clear. But I think the idea there was to have a common area space, meeting space, that type of a thing, not necessarily recreating the plaza. I think that it did say entirely distinctive from the existing Arcata Plaza. So something that's separate and different, obviously not the same. We don't in any way intend to make there be a second plaza like the plaza we have. And so maybe the wording in that is, I think, what's maybe confusing. I did make a note of that. And yeah,
it would be curious to me if what they meant was it for it to be a place like the plaza, just in a different part of town.
Yeah, I think that
it was meant more for the people and the businesses for right there
in that area,
personal park or whatever.
I think that's more what it's more like an open space, kind of a place that people can gather in that particular area, because it is such a large area. And so just making sure that it's not just a bunch of tall buildings. This is the Barrel District, which allows 8-story buildings. And so just making sure that there is green space in place that people can actually get together and do things. And it's not just a wall of buildings. Okay. So, but not replacing. There's not an intent to replace the plaza. And so I did make. I didn't
think it was intended to replace it. I just my feeling of it, the way it was described in the plan, was that it would just the way it was described there would dilute that kind of sense of centeredness of the community around
Yep.
the plaza.
And that's not the intention. So I definitely think that the wording there could be maybe
Okay.
Revised a bit to make sure that that's clear.
Okay. Okay, doke. Well, that was my 2 cents.
Thank you. And then Amanda, you have your hand up again here.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry about how profoundly unhelpful I'm about to be, but I have to leave, which I'm not sure how that will affect the committee's ability to like vote on things or make decisions. Jen?
We still have a quorum, so we would still be able to we would still be able to vote on things. What time are you having to leave now?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to go do horse barn chores that have to get done before nightfall. But
Okay.
I just want to thank my colleagues for their thoughtful input. I think you have my recommendations and where I stand on things, and nothing has changed about those. And my apologies to the members of the public who didn't have a chance to hear yet. But thank you, Jane, for sending your written comments. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Amanda.
Okay. Well, if I could, I'd like to just make a couple of my notes. And
Yeah.
I think we've covered a really lot of this stuff too, just based on what we have in this green box and what we've been talking about, what we continue to talk about. We keep coming up with new facets. I think we're going to, as we move along down the pathway of getting this thing actually implemented and actually on the ground. I think for me, my biggest thing would have to do with like encouraging the development of community kind of equity programs. And the biggest thing I think we can do would be, for me, GA3I, owner occupied affordable housing. We are going to encourage new home ownership opportunities for lower income households through condominium, deed restricted, owner occupied condominiums and co-ops and stuff like that. And I think that is a really, really, really huge part of economic development, not only for businesses, but for the community in general. Because as Walt said, when you own something, I think it was you that said that, Walt, when you're the owner, you feel like you're invested in the community. And if you were able to own something that was affordable, I think that would be extremely important and possibly something that's kind of missing around Humboldt area in general. I think it would be something that if we were to work on that and kind of come up with some kind of policy that we can come up with, or some kind of, I wouldn't want to say a mandate, but some kind of way to encourage a developer to go through the work of having something that people can own. For example, I really like the one on South G Street. I think was it the city that built those ones? They're the little kind of trailery ones.
Yeah, it's more of a mobile home park type.
It's an affordable housing option that is very affordable. It's very much centrally located, and it really helps the people that are there to be able to buy those kind of things. Another one of my favorite projects in Arcata is the FoodWorks facility, which Amanda mentioned as a co-working facility and incubation kind of facility. I think that is so important. And I think that we could encourage something like that for people to do co-working and people to do that work remotely, that need a place to go to work remotely, someplace that's solid, someplace you could rent an office. Maybe you can buy an office, or you can buy some kind of time block and know that you have that place that you can go and do your work or do your research and development, or maybe it's a cooperative lab where they have all the fume hoods or whatever you're going to need to do your research and development. I think providing incentives for developers to have a certain amount of that, or to have a certain amount of those kind of infrastructural developments would be really, really important. And I think there's a lot of work in the verbiage that we could do if we wanted to do that, because we will, with the plan, it is just a plan. We're going to get whoever the developers are, they're going to do their vision of what they think is going to make money, likely. So if we can encourage, if we can somehow provide incentives, if there could be some kind of, if it's important to everybody on the council and the community, have some kind of mandate of percentage of the space that we would like to see with these kind of facilities. I think that would be really smart. Another thing that we could do would be to incentivize, if we weren't as a city to build some kind of parking structure, maybe we can incentivize the developer to build a paid parking structure. But maybe we know that we're going to need that in the Barrel District, or we're going to need one in each of the districts, or whatever we decide our needs are. I think providing incentives for people to develop that kind of infrastructure so that we're not left with just a bunch of 8-story buildings and no parking, because that was what got filled up, you know? So I think, yeah, just providing the incentives, encouraging the kind of development that we're going to want and need for our community would be really, really important.
Serge, did I get this accurate? Encourage development or provide incentives for co-work space?
Yeah, the co-work space, but also to continue to manicure the verbiage about the cooperative living and the affordable home ownership options of like a condominium or a co-op kind of thing.
I left that down here, and because this was one of Amanda's comments. So I think it's really specific to this particular one. So I highlighted that.
I would, exactly. I want to second that and define these concrete policies that would encourage, or just spend more time thinking about, can we be one step more equity minded in the way that we try to develop these opportunities? Because I think, you know, just thinking about the numbers, most developers would build a big building and then rent it to you. Likely you'd make more money in the long run doing that by owning a large building and collecting the rents. But if we were to say, hey, no, indeed, we want a chunk of our developments to be something that can be sold, I think that would be not that much different than renting it long term from a development standpoint. If we were to really encourage that, I think that would be smart if that was something that we really wanted to see.
So instead of can we be, because I know we can be, I said, how can we be more equity minded when we create these policies and implementation measures?
Yeah. And
that sound okay?
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's like more policies like, hey, we want to see, or maybe it's an incentive, even better. Hey, we're going to give you tax credit. We're going to give you some kind of, deal for making this 1 or 2 buildings that we really would like to see, aka a co-op, a co-working space, a food works kind of place, an incubator for people that are in small business or just starting their financial lives and investing in their community.
Do you want me to put incubator next to this co-worker space / incubator?
Yes.
Okay.
So those are my 2 things, and they kind of are on the same vein. I think encouraging a co-working space and some kind of light industrial research and development, an office space, a place where people can co-work in technology or in environmental technology or whatever their craft may be. Maybe working with it for that, however long it's working now, and do. It's going more and more that way, that you can work remotely or work in a collaborative environment remotely as well. So you can be there, work with 1 or 2 people. People can Zoom in.
I missed something, Serge. I know technology, research and development. There was something else that you said that I missed, I feel like.
Workspace for technology, research and development.
I mean, there's going to be more, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, just collaborative workspaces. You know, and I was thinking again with the business with the food works is great. Like the food works has all the code, floors, everything you need to do already for running a restaurant. They have it. Your condo space within the research and development building. That way you can still feel like you're equitably invested in the community. I think that would be one step even better. But just having those kind of spaces available for people to use, I think would be amazing. So yeah, those are my two big things. I think more can be said too with the usability of the space with a park, a plaza. It's still kind of confusing. Are we going to buy some of that land as the city to install our own parks, stuff like that?
Let me go down to that. Let me go down to that policy. Hold on one second. See if I can figure out which one it was. Sorry.
It's okay. I think it's
concept there. And really the concept for a lot of the public space in the district is that we'd have publicly accessible private space. And that's for a couple of reasons. Our ability to require dedications of parkland and that sort of thing are limited unless there's a subdivision. It's real clear when there's a subdivision. And then, you know, and so if there isn't a subdivision, how do we get parkland is the question. Well, if we write into the rules, look, you can have this streamlined process, but in order to get that streamlined process, you have to give us park-like amenities that everyone can use, not private parks that only your residents can use or only your employees can use, but, you know, publicly accessible park spaces. Those are very efficient teams that we have here. But the reality is that we're often overwhelmed. And so if you have a publicly accessible private open space, that private entity is maintaining it. That doesn't become the maintenance burden of the city of Arcata. So it does kind of two things, gets us two things. It's, you know, I'm not saying it's the, you know, the silver bullet. It's not, there are definitely some cons with it, but it's a way for us to ensure that, you know, that there is public space for folks in that district to hang out in, and it doesn't just become, you know, completely privatized. I think, as you said, you know, all 8-story buildings, because that is not the intent. The intent is to make a vibrant public space that people can enjoy.
understandably so.
Linda, did I catch this correctly? Clarify how this is distinctly different than the plaza and potentially change the language from plaza to making it more of a broad, making it more clear what it is.
Yeah, I guess just something so that it's clear that was the purpose of it. I'm not trying to change the purpose of it, but if it was intended more as a local, like, you know, all our neighborhoods have our little local parks, and so, you know, if that's what it was meant to be more like.
Just so clarifying that language.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just leave it like that. Potentially change language from plaza to something more broad, or clarify this as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then this, just so this is what David was talking about, was right here, is that incentivize privately owned open spaces as community amenity. So that's kind of the what he was just sort of talking about as far as.
Yeah, that was one of my questions in clarifying language, was to wrap my brain around how privately owned public spaces work. But David, thank you for that explanation. That makes it clear.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So do you as a group want to kind of go over these? I think some of these were just pulled in from additional meetings and might not be relevant, or the group may not want to forward those on as recommendations just because it just may not make sense. We pulled these in just to give you kind of a starting place at the last meeting.
Yeah, I think they're all important points. Maybe we can go over them one by one and just make sure we're all we can say if anyone feels like they shouldn't be included when we submit this, maybe we can talk about it. If we just go over them one by one, do you think that'd be fair?
Yeah. Does that sound good with the rest of the group? Do you guys want to go through that? And then we can go down to the actual policies that people had discussed too.
Sure. So the first one, interested in making sure that businesses aren't displaced. I think this was probably one of the biggest public concerns that we heard. And it's making sure that the businesses that are there are able to continue to exist and aren't going to have to leave and or aren't going to have to somehow cease to exist because of the conditions of the neighborhood, which I think is extremely important. We don't want to kick people out of where they're at. So does anyone feel like we shouldn't leave that one up there? Okay.
We're going to have to kick them off the EDC if they raise their hand. I'm just kidding. Okay, the next one.
You can speak there. Okay. Would like more clarification on how projects will be approved in this plan. This one's a little bit vague, but it is pretty important. That is what is going to be the policy when the developer brings the plan forward.
So I think that this is more of something that's going to come out with a form-based code. Yeah. So I think, and David, you can chime in too if you want to on this one, but I do think that this is something that's going to be addressed with the form-based code, and we're going to have additional input and meetings and conversations when that comes out. So I don't know that that this plan is really going to address that, but yeah, I don't know, David, if you wanted to. He's not unmuting, so Linda, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was in ETA. I was reading through Jane's public comments, and that kind of brought that up. We don't have any final language with those form codes, and so is there an ETA on when that would be, even a rough ETA?
Well, David. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And the exact date, I'm glad you asked for a rough ETA because I can do that. The exact date is obviously lots of factors still pending on that. But the plan is that, once we get through this policy level discussion, once we have that policy on the table and we know, what we're in terms of the amenities and all of that sort of thing, kind of what the targets are. And then also after we've been able to go through the design work, then we'll start getting into the form-based code pieces. We can be developing that all along, but, in particular because of some of the recusal issues and some of the, potential conflicts of interest, we've had to break apart the general plan piece from the code piece. So what you'll see is over the course of this year, the goal is that we will have, completed, the majority of the public engagement on the general plan documents and the gateway, and EIR will be out for circulation. And then as we go into early next year, we'll start getting into the EIR analysis, the circulation of that will be complete. We'll do responses to comments. And then ultimately sometime early next year best case scenario, sometime early next year, say spring of next year, we'd be into the stage where we could actually start taking action on these documents, adopting the EIR, adopting the policy documents. The policy documents are going to outline a series of zoning changes that are going to be necessary. Now, we've been focusing on the gateway area, because it's a brand new element, but we've got zoning changes all throughout the city. And we'll likely have to strategize around how we take those up to make sure that we have as few conflicts of interest in any one decision at a time. So that's sort of the big overview. To hone in on specifically what you're talking about, when do we start seeing this detail? We're going to start seeing it in bits and pieces, and we'll be building it together starting basically now. We've already initiated the form-based code design work. We started off with a presentation from one of our consultants, kind of identifying what a form-based code is and how it can be used in the city of Arcata. That's on our SERP website. I encourage you to go watch it if you haven't already. We're going to next step into a little bit deeper dive on the form-based code with respect to design. We're going to be rolling that out over the course of the next couple of months. And then we can, in terms of the amenities, I heard a lot of discussions tonight about detail that could be in either the form-based code and specific standards or as amenities. and we can continue to have those conversations at the committee. It can be a regular ongoing item that we ultimately can pull together in the first draft of that form-based code.
Okay, great. Awesome. So are we still on, we're still on the, so we're still on the, we'd like more clarification on how projects will be approved in this plan, which I guess, and Jane, I just read through her public comment, which was like kind of applicable here, that maybe, I don't know, that is there going to be standards, or how are we going to get the amenities and the different things, such as the public spaces that are privately owned? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does need some more clarification. So I think, would anybody be interested in removing that one, or is that one that we'd like to leave on there? Walt, do you have your hand up?
I do. It's, I do think it is part and parcel to this, but it does leave us tilting at windmills because we're not sure what the approval process is going to be. So we're like guarding against whatever is out there in the darkness. And so it's important, but it's not going to be answered by this. It can't be answered by this plan. It has to be answered by the form-based code, which I got out of the presentation. So it's important, but I don't know that it's in our purview.
I agree. Do you think it warrants taking it off of there?
I think maybe rewording it and saying concern is noted that a lack of clarity as to how these projects will be approved makes it difficult to nail down specifics, some specific recommendations. I just think that not knowing what
I know, and
not knowing whether you're playing soccer or cricket kind of, is challenging.
I agree. But either way, we're gonna say, hey, we need more clarification.
Yeah, it's like
you need.
I don't know if they can give it to you because it's not. They don't have it.
I agree.
We can leave it if you guys all want to leave it. I just wanted to throw it out there that it might be something that is addressed in the form-based code. It will be something obviously that is addressed in the form-based code, and so it might be more applicable to that conversation. We can send this to the planning commission and city council and say that these are the recommendations from the EDC, and they can look at that and go, okay, yeah, but that's going to be addressed in the form-based code. Yeah. It's just a recommendation and just your guys' really your thoughts. It seems like more so than.
I agree, and I think since it made it on here, I don't think there's any reason to take it off. If you guys think it's going to clutter our recommendations here, we could vote to take it off. Or
you could put it at the end and just say clarifications or something, because it's really not one of our recommendations. It's really just kind of an overriding, like
maybe deep thoughts.
This is challenging.
So I could just put clarifications or
something, yeah, so that it's not, because it's not a recommendation. It's just like or
maybe just clarifications needed. Does that sound like you want more clarification on that particular topic?
I'll let you do it. I don't have any idea how to say it.
Okay, let's see here.
Yeah, maybe we can put it down at the bottom with concerns, clarifications and concerns or something.
That way it stays, but we're also kind of understanding that it might not be
right. And I think this next one is kind of in that same vein, that we would like to hear from renters and populations that will suffer if we don't address the housing needs, which, is I think is applicable, but not necessarily. I mean, we would like to hear from them for sure, but.
I guess I could put this in. We could just comment other, and then just sort of have these things that are just sort of like, these are things that are more big picture that are kind of have been brought up.
Mm-hmm.
and we could put that one into this sort of bucket down here, as opposed to like interested in making sure businesses aren't displaced, making sure that language is really clear. That's a recommendation. Making sure there's parking concerns and mobility concerns. Those are a recommendation, making sure that area is really strengthened. That would be a recommendation, but would like to hear from renters and populations would just be more of a, I guess, just something that.
Yeah. Side note,
yeah, you guys can decide if you want to take it out or if you want to move it down here.
I would move it down, but I do think Serge's comment about clarifications and concerns elevates it. Other just kind of relegates it to like the ash heap of history. But clarifications and concerns kind of, raises the temperature a little on it.
Okay, let's see. Let's just call it clarifications and concerns. Okay. I don't recall discussion about prevailing wage and construction jobs related to the area. I don't recall where this came from.
I think I can clarify that one. We
good.
discussed in one of the meetings, I can't remember who was in the meeting, but having construction firms, and I had offered to talk to some of our clients to see if they'd come and talk about what concerns might be in the construction businesses locally on that. I'm not sure we specifically talked about prevailing wage issues, but that would obviously come up if we were dealing with construction. Yeah,
if it's affordable housing and there's, federal or state funding, then yes.
Yeah.
And it's just, this is discussion about, so I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
I can't really remember what the main core intent behind it was.
I think maybe it might address some of what Amanda was speaking about with working on her workforce statistics and all, that a lot of the jobs that would be created would be in construction and would be therefore prevailing wage jobs. And this, I don't know, might be attractive, or it might pose problems for those construction companies. I'm spitballing a little bit.
Is there a way that we can cohesively include what our concern or recommendation would be within the verbiage of it? If not A, if not B, should we remove it from this list, or can we put it under clarifications and concerns?
Maybe to address just not necessarily prevailing wage jobs, but just jobs. What jobs are kind of being planned into, as Amanda was talking about, the construction jobs, and then what jobs would be created as a result? What jobs would be,
so maybe that's kind of
would be required to actually, do this.
So maybe that is something maybe under this particular table 6, which I'd have to pull up on. I don't have it right in front of me what the table 6 is, but this is one of the things that Amanda mentioned, which is broader examples of job creation, makerspaces, co-working, other facilities, light manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And then maybe in addition, discussion on construction and like workforce development.
I guess.
Does that make sense?
Having some discussion on what kind of jobs we might anticipate being created by the project, and then, or what kind of jobs and workforce would be in that gateway area.
Okay, so discussion on. Go ahead.
I'm thinking, if I could just jump in real quick, because I think that, this again is maybe a little too targeted for the type of document that this is. This is a general plan element that sets out policies the analysis that, can be done on a 20-year, a 50-year plan is a lot different than the analysis you might do on sort of like an economic implementation plan that's over a much shorter period where you're looking at real-time data and workforce and stuff like that. So I'm just getting the sense that we're kind of heading in this direction of trying to, get a much more granular set of data or estimates or projections than this document is really intended to handle.
Maybe that could be something more refocused in the economic development strategic plan again. David, is that what your thoughts are?
Yeah,
potentially,
or it could be sort of like an implementation measure that comes out of the policy. The policy being, trying to attract a broad diversity of different workforces and being, flexible and nimble to, take advantage of, trends that are, occurring in the economy over time. And then an implementation of that could be something along the lines of, through the economic development strategic plan or some other implementation tool, continue to monitor and project near-term, needs for, worker housing or something like that, or whatever the goal is that we have that for that specific. That's even probably too narrow because that would be like a subset of implementation measures within the economic development strategic plan. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't want to dissuade you from making whatever recommendation you want to make, but I think to try and keep it at the policy level, you may not need to get into that level of detail about workforce.
So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you want me to?
I think it's a lofty topic. I think what you'd written here, it would be fine if that was the sentiment of where we were at when we wrote that in there.
This came from Amanda. So
what you had just written in there, but if that's like maybe the core sentiment of where we're at when we had written that one down, I think that would be pretty a streamlined place to put it.
Okay. So are we okay, everybody, with me taking this out here and leaving it down here?
Yeah.
Do I get a thumbs up? There we go.
An official thumbs up.
I didn't see Hamnoth because there he is. Okay. And Walt, you nodded. I'm guessing that's a thumbs up. Okay. There we go. Straw vote. Here we go. And then there was an appreciation for the focus on walkable spaces and alternative transportation. That's not really a recommendation, but it's just feedback for the council that might be good. Just that
appreciation sounds great. I'm sure they don't get much of that.
Nope. Just kidding. So are you guys comfortable with leaving that one in?
I think that sounds good.
I think that everybody has mentioned that we all love that the walkability and alternative transportation and that there, with the understanding that there's also parking concerns. So plan reflects national best practice for urban growth and development. I think that this was something that I heard from Amanda. I'm pretty sure that was one of her comments. I don't know that it's really a recommendation. It's just, again, sort of a.
Yeah, I like the sentiment of it. I'm really not sure what national best practice for urban growth and development is. Is that like a standard? Is that like a form? Is that some kind of?
It's a planning speak.
The best. I'm gonna Google it. Like, is that a specific thing?
Was that a statement of what it is currently, or was that an aspirational statement?
No, I think that's a statement. That was a statement from her that that's what it currently is.
Okay.
And she's not here to defend herself.
I know. So. I'm really not sure what we mean by that. Plan reflects national best practice for urban growth and development. Like, sounds good, but I'm not sure. Like,
I don't know that it's a recommendation. So if you guys are wanting to take it out, I think that would be fine. Or
I do not know whether it does or it doesn't. I do know that the presentation that was given on the overriding document, whose name I cannot remember now,
Ben Noble.
The form-based code was on a larger scale. So I think it, and that was really about urban development and how to handle this fringe stuff. So I think it does. If you wanted to move it, you could move it down to the bottom and say, does plan reflect? Because that's the only thing that would be really a concern or a question.
I agree. I think that might be.
But I think it does. But
and two, it sounds really good, the language of it, that we're gonna reflect the national best practice, but I really don't know.
We could put down here under clarifications, we could put make sure plan reflects national best practice for urban growth and development. Does that?
Sure. Make sure. Yeah.
Sound?
Well, and are we urban?
We actually are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. We're not rural. I know that's a misconception from a lot of people. We are not.
I think if it was my decision, I'd say we could move that under clarifications and concerns and say, yeah, make sure, or something that's less harsh than make sure, like, does plan reflect.
Well, I think does plan reflect. I don't know that I don't know. What do you guys?
Plan reflects.
I thought ensure worked pretty well.
Ensure?
Ensure plan reflects. Yeah.
Okay. Does that sound good? Can I get thumbs up from people?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah. I think, just we can leave a question or whatever comment.
Just leave it down here. You mean under clarification and?
Yes.
I feel like it's muddied because I really don't know what we're trying to ensure. I mean, it sounds great. It's like, do your best out there.
Again, I know I feel bad. Amanda's not here, but if you guys want to delete it, you can totally delete it. It's not a recommendation. I don't know that it matters. I feel like it would be okay if it wasn't here.
Jennifer, are we trying to finalize tonight, or
we're trying to get our recommendations so that we can kind of have something cohesive to go back to. Yes, the goal is to try and get these together and make a recommendation that the entire group can approve to move forward.
Oh, okay. I have another meeting in 2 minutes, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything, I mean, in these points, I agree. So whatever you guys would like to do, is that okay? Then I can join the other one. I thought we're going to have one hour meeting.
Is there any more on this list that you feel like you would want to chime in to remove?
Not really. I just want to make sure that we want to have, more clarification about the incentives. At least, there is something.
So I've got that here, right? Encourage, develop, or provide incentives.
Yes.
Have that, yeah.
Can I make a quick recommendation? Because you have had a pretty robust conversation. It sounds like I'm not hearing a lot of dissension on any of these topics. I think that, you've made a lot of progress on them, and it sounds like you're about to lose another committee member. You do need to take public comment before we close the meeting. And so I want you to think about that as well. But perhaps what you could do is, if you take action to forward the recommendations that you've made thus far, we'll have something to move forward with. If the Economic Development Committee wants to take this up again at their next regular meeting, they're more than welcome to. Basically, what we're trying to get is some recommendations from the committee to move it forward. There's still lots of process left. Most of what you've discussed today, with perhaps the exception of parking, isn't really going to have an impact on the environmental document. And that's one of the things that we really need to resolve on pretty quickly so that we can get our environmental document under circulation. Minor policy tweaks that say, hey, let's encourage businesses aren't really going to impact that. And so if you want to continue the discussion, dig into other things in more detail, have, additional working sessions to ask more questions about how the policy could be reflected in the form-based code, we can do that afterwards. So I would just put forward, it sounds like to me, based on outsider's perspective, that you probably have enough to take an action, put a motion on the table, take public comment, take an action.
I agree. Yeah, I think we've talked about all these policies, and I think we've all been in agreement when we've written them down that we all thought they were important, or at least a few of us did. And if there's no contention to any of them, I agree with David that this isn't the know all say all. This is just us at this point saying, hey, these are what we're hearing from the public. This is what we feel ourselves. This is what we talked about. These are our recommendations for what we should look into more. And of course, the council is going to take these recommendations and do with them what they will. Like it's, I think that's actually a great idea, especially considering we only have another.
Yeah, for timing wise. So does someone want to make a recommendation? Oh, Linda, go ahead.
Sorry. There was one thing I just got caught up with the other conversations, and what my third area was in the arts and entertainment section of the plan. If we could just add something, if it's possible, and David may be able to speak to this, but to encourage city artist partnerships or something of that sort. Across not just the Creamery building, but across the area for artists, performing artists, that kind of thing.
So I feel like there's a section in the arts and culture. So do you think maybe just enhance the arts and culture plan area?
Yeah. Just
plan. Sorry, policy.
Right. And section. I was just thinking, because artists, a lot of them individual artists, it's hard to get to resources that you need. And I know I'm a little biased in this area, but I see the arts as a good economic driver in terms of the community. So yeah, if there could be something about city artist partnerships to promote the arts in that area.
And we do have the art strategic plan that encompasses the whole city. So that is mainly our focus. And that did just get adopted. So it is very relevant and current. But maybe, does the group feel strengthen? Policy. What is it called? Arts and culture policies.
Yeah, since it was in there, and that's just a particular interest of mine.
Okay, does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
Well, is there anybody that'd like to make a motion that we submit these changes?
I would like to make a motion.
Well, so do we have to take public comment first, or?
Oh.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get a motion in a second, and then we're going to take public comment, and then we'll finalize the vote after the public comment. That's how city council does it that way a lot.
Works for me.
All right, so I hear a motion from whom now? Do I hear a second to resubmit these?
I'll second.
Okay, lovely. So then at this point, we'll take public comment. And I see 3 hands raised, the first being Jane Woodward. And I would like to say, for the sake of time, if we can keep, our comments under 3 minutes, 2 minutes would be ideal, just because we only have 11 minutes left before it's 2 hours. We would really appreciate that. I see that Jane has her hand raised first. And she's at the top of my list here. Jane, can you hear us?
Well, I'll be quick. You already have my comments. However, what I would recommend is before you send these to council that you revisit them. In other words, make sure that they come out as actual recommendations, such as, the existing one that's really obvious is that's good. Leave creamery district boundary, but remove zoning implications. Add to the map. That's a specific recommendation. I guess the first one isn't interested in, but make sure businesses aren't displaced. Make it specific. The next one is really just thank you for, that's not a recommendation. That's just saying thank you. That's a nice focus. Consider not just interested in, support community land trusts, housing co-ops, condos, opportunities for more diverse ownership. Just put it in, this is a recommendation. Provide more specific detail about compatible light. In other words, rewrite these to be actually, I recommend A, B, C, D, E, Fs. I would rework these a little bit between now and when you send it, so that if somebody could do the job of reworking them as they would become real recommendations, whoever does that in the committee, or God knows, I'll do it for you if you want, but and I can submit it back to you, but don't send it this way. Make it more explicit. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
You're right.
Solid point. All
So
right.
making more declarative statements is what I'm hearing.
I think that's smart because we are kind of scattered. We have written thoughts here. These aren't exactly recommendations. So I think that's actually a really great point from Jane. Thank you, Jane. Should we take a comment from Fred? Fred Weiss, Marketo1.com.
Yes, hello. This is Fred Wise. I want to congratulate the entire committee. You're asking some great questions and you're putting forth what I regard as some great energy and very thoughtful considerations. I submitted a transcription of what I said 2 weeks ago. I like to transcribe this entire presentation today because you said some great things. I keep referring to the Arcata1.com website because I've done a lot of work there. Serge and Amanda talked about home ownership opportunities. That's a key element for me also. I think the plan as it is now provides practically zero home ownership opportunities. And that was addressed at the Planning Commission meeting, last Planning Commission meeting. We need to do something there. So I'm solidly with you on that. Walt, you mentioned that there's not a single word of the internet or tech in this document. I did a little word cloud to show all the words that are and are not in the document. It's on the Arcata1.com website as the word cloud. There's lots of words that aren't in there, like sun, shading, low-cost housing, home, or house are not also in there. Okay, it's just one of those curious things. It doesn't in itself mean something, but those words are not in there. Linda talked about the need for 3D modeling so she can see solar shading. That's a missing element right now that is coming perhaps in July or August. David mentioned the presentation of the form-based code from Ben Noble. I consider this an absolute must to read or look at. Unfortunately, the audio is really muffled. I transcribed the entire thing and put it on the Arcata1.com website with an enhanced audio that I sharpened for clarity so you can hear it. I prefer to read things rather than watch a video. I encourage you to read it and listen to it in a more clear form. All the contents are there. All the examples are there. Linda asked for a rough ETA on the form-based code. I don't believe an answer was really given. I also would like to have a rough ETA on the form-based code. I think it'll be about 6 months, but that's just an entire guess on my part. Your concerns about the difficulty in evaluating this plan without the form-based code are also echoed strongly by the Planning Commission. They are evaluating next week the chapter on design. couple months ago, the vice chair, Dr. Judith Mayer, said, can we evaluate design without having the form-based code? It was not a quote. In essence, that's what she said. It's been a problem. But the form-based code will come, and we'll have to revisit a lot of this stuff. Again, you have my great appreciation, and I respect every word I've heard. Thanks very much.
Well noted. Thank you. I really appreciate that comment. All right, we have a comment from Chris Richards.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for your hard work and putting together another meeting and working forward with all this. Again, I would mirror what Jane said about making the language a little stronger with action words and real firm language that really says what you're wanting to give as support for the plan, advice for the plan. Let's see, I use the word when I'm thinking, but I'm trying to remember to pause. So the equity owner occupant building, the idea for a mandate, I definitely make that one stronger. I think that's a huge thing that's missing. And in Arcata, we're real low on that now, 37%, or somewhere along that line. And, if we're going to have a strong community in the future, definitely we want to create more of that. Early on, there was plenty of conversation about parking. I encourage more language or ideas around the idea of some parking structure with electric shuttles for not only Cal Poly, but for shopping downtown and for high school students and all of that. I think that could become a real great thing somewhere, wherever the biggest structures are going to be built. And that brings me to my last point here. On page 44 of the draft, I don't know if you could bring that up, Jen, but this whole building height discussion, I never put it out how I like or dislike the building heights that are promoted. And, there's reasons on both sides for pro and con with that. But if you look at that map on page 44 of the draft, the Barrel District, where they're saying, earlier they talked about, there's only going to be 8-story buildings in the Barrel District. That's the pale yellow colored one down south, but the hub is blue, and that goes up through the entire center. Those are 7-story promoted areas. You've got the corridor with 6. The neighborhood on the edges in the brown are 5. And, I think it was a little bit lacking on 8-story versus 7 in a majority of the area of this is something that should be looked at and really clarified. I know I can mirror what I've heard in the community, and folks are not really behind that. So anyway, that's all I have for you. And thanks again for all your hard work. I really like this group. Take care. Have a good rest of your week.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
So then our last comment will come from Patricia.
Hello, I'll keep it brief. I've actually been line cooking for a good part of the meeting, so I missed some of it. So I apologize if I'm going over some of the stuff that you've already gone over. But I would really like to see recommendations about a recommendation to keep the actual zoning of light industrial and light manufacturing. We still haven't gotten the clear definition of both of those. So I would like to keep that usage in the area and just add, the other usages. And I also like to see some strong language about keeping the creamery and the artisan area and those, because that's just kind of a hub of innovative jobs and businesses there, and kind of protect that a little bit more. And And also focus a little bit on the L Street bicycle path as being a great economic builder, just bringing people in, a corridor for bike and pedestrian activity into that area, because I know they do a lot of entertainment and then, those businesses. So I'd like to see both of those in there. So let's see. I think I missed the first half of the meeting. I hear that you did a good job. So thank you all for really, bringing up some good, what I heard was really impressive. So anywho, thank you again. And I'm looking forward to seeing some little bit more clarity on that bicycle path area as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Patricia.
Thank you.
Okay, with all those comments in hand, what do we think? I think all very valid points and everyone's input. I think one of the last actionable things we could do would be to adjust the verbiage here, as Jane said. Walt, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. So when we scheduled this meeting, I think the understanding was that we could either do it. We weren't going to be able to do it at the last meeting to do all this. It was we were going to do it at the next meeting, or were we going to need 2 meetings to kind of go through this and read it? And maybe I misunderstood that, and we just wanted more input.
So the Planning Commission has asked for the feedback from the committees as soon as possible, which is why we've been trying to get this feedback compiled so that we can give it to the Planning Commission. So you guys are more than welcome. Oh, sorry, I have a timer going. You guys are more than welcome to put this again on the agenda in August, if that is what you want to do. But I know that they are interested in getting this feedback and recommendations as soon as possible. So I think that's kind of why we scheduled this special meeting, is so that we could try and get something to them today.
When are they meeting next?
Their next meeting is on the 26th, which is next Tuesday, and then they meet again on the 9th.
Okay. So our next meeting is the Tuesday,
the 2nd. Yeah.
August 2nd. I just, I'm very conscious of artificial emergencies. Are all your other groups getting input? I mean,
yeah,
we're not going to be able to edit this.
We've met right now with the with the Transportation Safety Committee. I believe with the Energy Committee or Parks and Rec Committee. I think Energy Committee is coming up next week. The Creeks and Wetlands, I believe, scheduled a special meeting. David, do you know there? I know that you were at that one.
Yeah, no, I was. I want to back up, and I mean, artificial emergency. This is not. If you guys want to continue it, continue it. There's absolutely zero pressure here. And the reality is that, again, like I said earlier, this is a multi-month process. We're not going to be done with this until into 2023. You could do subcommittees. You could take special meetings. You can just take it up at your regular meetings. You can go at your own pace. At some point, the council is going to make a decision. And if your recommendation isn't in by then, they may make a recommendation without you, but we're not at risk of that now. So the council and the Planning Commission are meeting on August 23rd with a joint study session to have a conversation about, in part, timing. So yeah, don't worry about it. I mean, you've had a productive conversation tonight. I would strongly encourage you to try and hone your discussion at your next meeting if you do carry this forward, so that you're really focused on taking action at that meeting. But if you don't want to take action, then again, it's up to you. You are in the driver's seat. So take the action that you feel like you need to. Don't take the action that you feel like you're not ready to.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here. The comment that was made that these are not actionable items, this looks more like scratch paper, is accurate. And I don't think we are. It serves us well to action it as it's written. And I don't know that we can say, we're going to approve this, but go ahead and edit it however you want and change it. So I think given that they've got a meeting on the 9th, which is directly after our meeting, if we can ask staff to clean this up to make it directed, and then it doesn't have to be like 2 hours of talking about this. We can just look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense to me, or did we miss the bus or whatever. But at least we're actioning on something that's cogent and doing what we want it to do. My 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to be clear, the purpose of this was to, and I'm not sure if you saw this presentation, but the purpose of this was to try and get some recommendations. If those recommendations align with the policy, we would go back and redraft that policy, keep the process moving forward. We've got concurrent review going on between various bodies. And so there's, basically a lot of balls in the air. If you absolutely, as a committee, if you absolutely will not make a recommendation until you see the specific language, and you want to say, yes, that's the specific language we want to see, any of those policy items that we talked about that really reinforce the existing policy, we've talked about a lot of things where we said, yeah, that's clearly in the document. That's the intent of the document. We can make slight modifications to, clarify or enhance that. Those things, what we're planning on doing is making those edits in line in the text and identifying those changes with a color coding that lets the Planning Commission, the City Council know which committee made those recommendations. The other recommendations that are coming forward that either don't align with or have contradictory policy recommendations. So EDC said take parking away. The Parks and Rec or the Energy Committee said I'm sorry, reverse that. EDC said we want more parking. Energy Committee said take parking away. So now we have a conflict. Those are going to come forward as general recommendations. One committee says we need more parking. The other committee says we need less. And then they're going to be presented to the decision makers in a table along with an analysis of what would be the impact of that policy. We're not going to craft language for those because the City Council has to give us some guidance as to which of those 2 directions we want to go before we spend our time and energy crafting policy language. So if you come up with a body of recommendations, regardless of how well honed you have them as a committee, you're not likely to see the specific policy language at your next meeting. And if it's one of these policies, it's either a new policy that's not in concert with, or it's conflicting with what another committee said, you're not going to see policy language at all. You're just going to see the EDC says, parking's a big issue. They think we ought to have more of it. And they're not necessarily convinced that we ought to, try and reduce parking standards. So with that in mind, as you enter into your next meeting and start taking this information up again, I think that you're going to see reflected back to you, some of these, we may have time to try and go in and fiddle with the language, but some of them you're going to just see some slightly cleaned up discussions that we heard tonight. And we're going to ask you to take action on those, bring those forward to the decision makers, and we'll be developing that policy as we can over time. Because again, you have to recognize we have 9 different committees. We have, lots of other things going on besides just the gateway plan. And so it's a time and energy prioritization and those kinds of things that we have to counterbalance. I just don't want you to think that we're going to come back and have a bunch of cleaned up policy language for you to review next time and say, yep, that's exactly what we thought, or no, modify this.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I think the sooner that we can get in these recommendations, even if they're not super complete, we're going to continue to talk about this. I think the quicker that we can get them in concisely, and again, I'm not advocating for leaving them as a jumbled. I think we should make them more concise. I think we should think about what's important. Maybe I think we should put them in order of importance to us so that we're extremely concise. I don't think there's any reason to be in a rush, but I do think that the quicker we get these in, the quicker they're going to be up for consideration officially, and it would be in everybody's interest to do it quickly and efficiently.
The other thing you may consider, if there are a couple or three of you who are very interested in making sure that, you know, your committee recommends very specific language, if you want to form a subcommittee to draft that language, and then we can bring it back to the full committee at the next meeting, you know, that's another alternative too. And then you would see really specific language. I just can't guarantee that I could dedicate the staff resources to doing that between now and next meeting. But subcommittees are always an option.
Yeah, I didn't think we did have the subcommittee going for this as well, but I think this is clearly like the biggest topic that that this committee has ever seen, and it's overwhelming at this point that we get these together. Monique, do you have something you can add?
Yeah, I wanted to, I guess, ask for I noticed there was like the public workshop and then the planning commission, and they didn't have dates listed. And I'm wondering kind of, because I'd like to dig more into this, and if I could be on the subcommittee to kind of draft more in-depth policy or, you know, pick through it, I would love to, but I want to know what that time would be before our next meeting.
So the study session between the Planning Commission and the City Council is scheduled for the 23rd of August.
Okay.
So that's the date for that meeting. And I think that it would make sense, again, like David said, it's not on fire. It could go after that. There's all kinds of time, but I think that that would be a target we would want to get our recommendations into them by. I would believe that would make the most sense.
By August 23rd, or
that's the date of the study session. So prior to that, so if we can get these, you know, again, it's up to you guys, whatever you guys want to do. But if we can get them in by the 2nd, that would be, I think, ideal. That's our next meeting, unless you guys wanted to schedule an additional.
No,
search. No,
pretty close. I don't think we need another. I mean, we're so close. I think we just need to go through. We need to groom the verbiage, as Jane had mentioned. We'll make specific recommendations out of these. Their thoughts are there. I think it's not going to take us very long. I think we could probably pull it off by the next meeting and have this all done. I think we made a lot of progress here. I think more than anything, we all got way more comfortable with what we're actually supposed to do as a committee, which is make recommendations to the city council. And how do we do that? Through time and learning. And this is it. We have our ideas. By the next meeting, let's come at it and let's make recommendations out of these ideas. I think we can vote on it and come up with these recommendations to solidify them. I think by the next meeting, that'll give us some time to cool off. We really understand what we're doing. We could come in concisely. We could even, you know, set up a subcommittee, or one of us can do it and take the verbiage, as Jane said, she would even do it. Come back at it. We can have it in front of us and I'll approve them for next time. I think is what I'm hearing from everybody, because we did make it pretty far, but I would hate to feel like we're in a rush and we're going to send these off all weird and not concise.
Yeah, and I think you guys did get through a lot. I think you guys got through a lot. I know that it was kind of painful to get to this point, but I appreciate all of your input and you're working together. You guys are really good at collaborating and making sure everybody's involved. So
Absolutely.
I think that's great.
And we're all helping each other. We're here in public.
Oh, sorry. I've got a question. So going back to August, the city council study session, will we have opportunity to work directly with the council to get that direct feedback when we're in that process? You know,
it's so. David, do you want to talk about the structure of the planning commission? It's the planning commission city council study session. So they're going to be at the table having the conversation. But that doesn't mean, you know, the public, it's open to the public, so the public can be there. But as far as the EDC getting direct feedback from the council, I don't know that will happen at that meeting.
And it's not really the purpose of the meeting to directly have the EDC engage with the council directly, but you know, certainly the Economic Development Committee members should, you know, feel free to, you know, come to the meeting. It's a public meeting, or, you know, tune in. Actually, let me take that back. I'm not 100% sure we're going to have a Zoom option. So look to that. Check the agenda on that. But definitely feel free to tune in, participate in that way. And I think that there certainly could be a framework for a conversation with the council in terms of making those recommendations to go forward. And then the council may say, okay, look, let's have a study session with the Economic Development Committee, or let's make some decisions and then send that back down to the Economic Development Committee and ask them, hey, does this look right? We did this policy balancing, but we picked these three and left out this one, and this is the reason why. So that conversation can evolve over time. But yeah, certainly the 23rd, that's not the purpose of that forum.
Great. Thank you for the clarification, David. I appreciate it.
All right, you guys. Well, it's 7:15. I think we did a lot today. One problem I see is that we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve these things.
I'm going to change my motion. Let's postpone until our next meeting. And then we can clean and clarify and then rework on the document and submit, because we still have time.
So is that a vote of a nay from you? Can we renege the motion?
Yeah, I think if we don't have everyone. Oh, go ahead, David.
Yeah, just procedurally, and I apologize. I don't. This is definitely something where I would double check my Robert's rules if I had them in front of me. I'm not at work right now, and I don't have them in front of me. But I think procedurally, what you have here is a motion and a second on the floor. You need to take action on that motion and second. You have a counter motion on the floor. If it doesn't get a second, then it dies for lack of a second. So you may want to consider whether or not Hamnath's motion should be seconded, and then you would take them in the order that they were presented. First, the motion and second that was presented first, and then second, the motion and second that was presented second.
So we would just vote on it and kill it and then vote again, or we have to make it one continuous voting process?
I believe option A, that we have the motion and the second from the first one. The Hamnath said that we approve these. So if we were to vote on that,
and you're all going to vote no. You're all going to vote no on that, and then Hamnath put out a motion to
continue.
Recommend or to and continue actually, to the next date.
Yeah.
And so we need a second on that.
Okay.
All right. So we have to vote on the first one. Right. We didn't actually have a vote. So I think technically we need to.
I agree with Walt. So on the first one, we had a motion and a second. Walt, do you have a vote on that one? You're going to vote nay?
Nay.
Monique, do you have a vote? You were muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes.
Are you gonna say on the first one that we're gonna approve these? Or are you gonna vote yay or are you gonna vote nay? If you were to vote nay, we're gonna kill we're gonna kill this one and then continue it.
Okay, are we trying to kill it?
Myself, saying no. So we just want to kill this motion.
Okay, then no. Okay, let's kill it. Thanks.
I'm gonna vote nay as well.
Linda,
Linda, are you still there?
Yes, I'm gonna vote nay as well.
Okay, lovely. So that's everyone's voted nay on that one. And then I hear a motion from whom now to continue this until the next meeting. Do I hear a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
It's still my heart.
Okay, sorry.
Can we break into song?
Walt, do you have a vote on that one?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, here, yeah.
Yeah, Hamnath, yes.
From Hamnath, thank you. And Monique, you vote on that one if you can unmute.
I vote no on that one, yes.
You vote no on that one? Or yes?
We revised it.
I vote yes.
All right, I as well am going to vote yes that we move this into the next meeting.
Okay. Moving to the next
I'm thinking that I'm thinking this meeting went on just a little too long.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So I need to go. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Hamna.
Thank you, Hamna.
Bye.
Thank you. One thing I will say, David, though, is that this meeting is pretty monumental for us because we all got very comfortable about the processes, talking in general, whereas kind of up until this point, it's been kind of hard for us to act as a group cohesively because we don't really know what we're doing, what we're supposed to do. And for me, it's become a lot more clear after going through such
I totally agree. I was making a joke about how confused it got at the end. So I really want to thank all of the committee members and the public for sticking with it through this whole thing. I do think that there's a lot of great work that came out of this. I totally agree with you on that one, Chair. And I'm looking forward to your next regular meeting. So we'll go forward from there. Thank you.
You appreciate you sticking it out too. I know that wasn't exactly short for your schedule, so thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Right. Well, if that's it, we'll go to number 3, which is adjournment. So we'll adjourn this at 7:20, our longest meeting to date.
Thank you all. We'll see you in August.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye.